talky talk for me?
Sure, sure. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. We'll have a little chat, maybe with your dog,
Yes, Baba, chilling.
who's now sitting on my foot.
Who you can't really see in the frame, but he is there. Okay, voila. We are hitting record over here. Parfait. Okay, wonderful. Wunderbar. Okay. And here and there, you may hear a little meow from the other room, and that'll be my little kitty cat, but
Okay.
we're not gonna pick it up. Okay, Chico, gotta sit in the front. Okay, sit down. Okay, everyone, welcome back to another exciting and inspiring episode of On Location Vancouver, brought to you with the support of Tell a Story Hive. Well, what an exciting day. I've been sharing on my Instagram stories some little sound bites, keeping it a little secret, about an exciting guest we've had the pleasure of joining us today. I've been familiar of him and his work since my teens, even before I moved to Canada. As you know, the legendary William B. Davis. He's an actor, director, and of course an acting coach and an author. We're going to jump into his career, discuss his journey, as well as his books and his teachings. It is such an honor. Like, I am so delighted. I feel the little girl inside of me who used to watch the X-Files back in the day and get a little bit scared watching him, like his performance. The little girl inside of me, the teenager, is just screaming and fangirling right now. William, what an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Nice to meet fans from Pakistan.
Yes, of course. And, you know, I did a little bit of diving into some of the past interviews that you've done. And I was so interested in the journey of and sharing with our audience how the Smoking Man came about. Of course, we're going to talk about your books and everything that you're doing now. I did not know, like, how your character even came to be, and how it was the most fascinating character, because the way your presence was on camera, I remember feeling scared watching. I was like, this guy can do anything. You know, you don't know it. This is the bad guy, and he's quiet and sinister. So I'd love to hear, like, how you embodied that character without even saying words on camera.
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's not easy to answer, because I don't really embody a character. I mean, I do what the character does, and that makes me the character. That's one of the principles of my teaching, I suppose. If you do what the character does, you will become the character. So the first episode that I did on X-Files, it was, I had just auditioned for this small part with just 3 lines. I didn't get the part with 3 lines. I got this part with no lines. Wow, what the heck. Anyway, so I did a role on the pilot with no lines. And all I had to do really was to look, I don't want to say sinister, but curiously, who am I? What am I doing here? You know? And I remember that first episode, they're interviewing Scully in front of the FBI superintendent or whoever it was, and I'm standing beside this filing cabinet with my hands at my side and feeling kind of stupid, you know, just. So then I thought, well, what would I do?
Yeah.
This was me. So I looked. The filing cabinet was about elbow height, and I had a cigarette, of course, because I was called a cigarette smoking man. So I leaned on that, crossed my legs, and smoked. And there's a trading card for that now, that very picture. And that kind of set a tone that gave me a kind of superiority, I suppose, and a puzzling look. And that's sort of how it started. I didn't know if anything was going to happen after that. I thought it was just maybe a one-off. And I don't think Chris Carter knew if anything was going to happen. But they got kind of intrigued, and fans started to get interested. And so they gave me a little more and a little more. And fans got more interested, and then I did in the second scene. I did a big scene with Mulder, and that was kind of interesting. And then Jillian got pregnant, So here was a problem for the storyline. She's going to have to go away. Where's she going to go? Ah, she's going to be kidnapped by aliens. Who could be responsible for that? Ah, the cigarette smoking man. And then the whole mythology sequence really began to open up, and the whole storyline developed. It had not been planned, but came out of what we were doing. I mean, part of the magic of the show, I think, was that because there was no Bible at the beginning to say what's supposed to happen, it could respond to what was working well and what the fans were interested in, and that worked for me, and because my role then became quite major, as you know.
And there's the mystery, like that's what I meant sort of by the word sinister, because he's always in the shadows, and there is a stillness about your work. There is a presence, and the way you would show up, even though there was barely any dialogue, but it's through your body language. So fans around the world, like myself, are watching, and you're coming up with theories of what is happening. You know, you're just like, this guy can do anything. He's responsible for everything that's going down. And I remember even with my brother, who's a year younger than me, in Lahore, Pakistan, we would watch this show, and we would come up with theories and discuss for hours on end about your character and what's going down. And you know, and I get to be here, and you know, what an honor meeting you. And obviously your career is of acting, directing, and writing. It spans over several decades, and today we're going to be talking about your books.
Quite a few decades, yeah.
Yes. So these books, I love both of these covers. Where There's Smoke, right over here, Musings of a Cigarette Smoking Man. We're going to be talking about this book as well as acting. Like, it is remarkable, your teaching. Like, I'd love to hear your experience, what it's like. You know, William B. Davis School used to be just down the street from you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And now, you know, you're still teaching. You have your master class on YouTube. Share with our audience, you know, for aspiring actors or perhaps fans of yours who want to come and study with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been teaching acting for a very long time, and I was at one point I was the artistic director of the English section of the National Theatre School of Canada, and so I have quite a long background in the teaching of acting, as well as in directing and in acting, of course. So what we're doing now, I have this workshop with a fairly small group, and we're developing videos that we're posting on YouTube. So I kind of think it's a little it's intriguing, really, because when I started in the world of actor training, we believed it took 3 years to train an actor. That's what you worked at the National Theatre School as a student for 3 years full time, and then you were maybe qualified to become an actor. Now you look at a few tips on YouTube, and you figure you're an actor. You know, it's not quite as simple as that. But we can do a lot with our small tips and our zeroing in on a particular issues that come up for actors. I mean, I call it tricks, traps, and techniques. At least that's one of the sections in my book, because there are a whole lot of things that are thrown up in front of an actor that, in a way, block you from really being creative. Not least of which is the fact that every time I say this line, somebody else says that line. Yeah. Every time. Nothing new happens. So it becomes automatic very easily that when I say this, you say that, and I say this, you say that. And then the whole thing shifts to automatic in your brain, which is a different section of the brain than real life, and everything goes flat. So how do you keep it fresh? How do you not anticipate what's going to happen? So there's just an endless number of these things, and I have some provocative ideas of how to deal with them, which are in the book and on the videos.
Very excited. This page that I just opened up, don't learn your lines. You know, this is very fascinating. So I call myself a professional auditioner, which is like, I've had a few close calls, excusez-moi, and obviously I'm doing a lot of work, hosting and stuff, and I would love to hear from you. I'm sure the folks you're coaching, it probably comes up. the part of rejection, and then especially in today's day and age, you're doing a lot of the self-tape, like you see all the ring lights and the
Yeah.
blue, the businesses
Yeah.
in there, and finding space. Sometimes you're doing it at 5 in the morning, sometimes you're doing it, at midnight, you're trying to finagle someone to read for you, or
Yeah.
so what advice would you have for someone like in Vancouver today, putting things on tape? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, as I say, one of the chapters in the book is headed "Don't Learn Your Lines," and Bob Goodwin, who was a producer on X-Files, introduced the launching of that book, and he particularly looked at that section and said, "What do you mean, don't learn your lines?" Because they had a lot of trouble. I'm speaking out of turn with Jillian in the early years because she didn't know her lines. But my point is not that you shouldn't know your lines. You need to know your lines. But if you learn them the way you might learn something in school by memorizing it, you'll be distracted by the memory work, and you won't be putting yourself in the situation that you're supposed to be in.
Yeah.
So what I advise people to do is, once they have just even the vaguest familiarity of the text, especially the audition, then cover up your own lines, see what's said before you, and think about what you want to say. And you'll eventually peek and see what you actually do say, and it won't be what you wanted to say, probably. But what's the difference? What would make you want to say that instead of what you wanted to say? And that becomes your homework. That becomes how you develop your backstory, how you find out what's going on, what you want. And you work your way through a script in that kind of putting yourself in it and imagining you're there and imagining what you would want to do and trying to adjust what you want to do with what you actually do. And then when you come to do it, instead of anticipating what's being said, instead of knowing that they're going to say that to you, you actually don't know. You really don't remember
So
what
then
they're
you're
going to say.
listening.
Then you're absolutely, you have to listen or you won't know what to say.
Yeah.
And then it's fresh when you hear it, and then that gives you energy and gives you spark.
I feel like in watching, it's been a long time since I've seen, but I was watching a few clips, but I have to say I find it really phenomenal, like especially, I grew up in Pakistan, so I learned English by watching English movies like TNT,
Right.
like, classic black and whites, and even like where there was no dialogue. So that was the only entertainment that we had, or like Bollywood films or cartoons. But I learned English by watching these old Hollywood movies. Watching your performance on the X-Files, the reason why it stands out so much to me is because so much is said in body language and the air that was like around you. And the reason why I use the word embodied, because your presence on camera, you could just feel it, like so much was said without saying anything. So as someone in the audience watching this on this television box back in the day, you're just like, something is really happening. Like, this actor, you are not William B. Davis. You are like that person. And then all these theories, like, to me, that is magnificent. Like, as a performer, to like watch that, because there's so much mystery around you. And like you said, the role expanded because in the beginning they didn't know. So I'm sure your actors who are coming to study with you must ask you a lot of questions about how you prepared for that, obviously you have all this experience, like it wasn't just like overnight, you're the smoking man, you had all this experience before. So I'd love to hear, as a performer, like, how you prepared for like the first day when you were on set for X-Files.
Well, the first day was I mean, it's hard to even compare it with the first day, because the first day I knew nothing. I mean, I knew nothing what they planned. So I just had to create my own world. And I had to give myself reason. I don't remember what all the reasons were, but give myself reason for wanting to stand there and watch this, supervise this, and imagine who I might be. And because I had no direction, I had not been given any indication. And one of the things that happened in the course as the series developed is my backstory kept changing, because I kept getting new information. And they kept thinking of new things, and so they added it in. And so that, so there was a period where I was sure I was the top dog. I was in charge of whatever was going on. I was the head guy. And then all of a sudden there's an episode where there's this syndicate of older men, and the guy at the front is upset with me for being late. And all of a sudden I'm not in charge anymore. I'm responsible for him, But so you're always developing a backstory that makes it work for you, that puts you in the situation. You're not trying to guess what they want. You're trying to put yourself in there. And so there's not a simple answer to your question, what did I do? Because I did different things as the series evolved. But I had to find a reason for all the smoking, for instance. And what I felt was that I had been quite idealistic in the beginning. And in fact, we even shot an episode which we weren't able to show because it wasn't shot well enough, of us as young people, kind of getting started. And, but then I had to make so many compromises because I was under pressure from the aliens that I had to keep sacrificing myself. But it had to go on. We had to do what we had to do. But I had to kind of hollow out my emotions. And the smoking was a way of just deadening what I might otherwise feel, any kind of empathy, or so that it allowed me to do what I had to do. So things like that.
I also loved how it was shot, like your scenes, because there's always, like, I'm just getting all these memories of watching and being like, what is he going to do this episode?
I had a little help because the DOP, especially in the first 3 seasons, was just so careful to get the smoke in subtly, get it in the light, and not to, people keep often are surprised that I look now younger than they thought I would look at this age, because when they shot it, he always shot from the side, so that every line in my face showed, and then I would go and do some other kind of show and shoot it from the front, and I looked like a nice grandfather, but he had me looking quite sinister as he moved.
They're filming Tracker around the corner, and I was talking to a few friends who are working on the show, and they're like, William was just working with us. I don't know if you can say that, but they're like, yeah, William, because I mentioned, I'm so excited and honored to have you as a guest. So some of the crew were like, we're so excited, he was just here with us. Was there anything in Where There's Smoke that you hesitated to include or felt particularly vulnerable to share in your book?
I wrote far too much in that book.
I love the shot, by the way. This
is
the
classic.
ultimate.
That's the classic,
the suit, the everything, the hair.
And that shot's available on my website, signed, on williebdavis.com. You can order it if you want.
Lovely.
But yeah, there are things in that book that I probably shouldn't have put in because they're too personal, and I've said too much about my love life and things like that. But I was true. I was true to myself. It's also a fascinating book if you're Canadian, because there's a whole kind of history of Canada and Canadian theatre that just evolves with my life in a way, because I grew up in Toronto. I grew up. Our milk was delivered by horse. There was horse manure on the main streets. It was just a different world. I grew up in radio. We had no television. Canada had no television until I was in my teenage years. So when I started as an actor, I started as a radio actor, which was a big deal in Canada at the time. So there's stuff about that, and there's stuff about then. When I worked in England, I worked at the National Theatre with Albert Finney and Maggie Smith and Olivier, and so this. But no, I wouldn't say there's anything I'm too vulnerable in that.
that you were sharing your story, and you touched on some of the things that I was going to ask about, because a lot of people are like, okay, X-Files is the thing. So before the iconic cigarette smoking man or the cancer man, or you had this career.
I did.
And what first drew you, like, I'm sure people ask you this all the time, but I'm always curious to ask, like, backtrack. Like, did you always know you wanted to be a performer since you were like 5 or 8 or 10? Like, how did you jump into performing?
Well, I did. I jumped into performing when I was quite young. My cousins ran a summer theater company. They were half a generation older than I am. So they ran this summer theater company in Ontario. And as it happens, they rehearsed in our basement in Toronto. So when they needed a young boy, they needed someone for a play called Portrait in Black. They needed a boy of about 10 or 11, and I was convenient. Here, you do it. I was a good reader, so I was fairly, a good oral reader, so I was partly capable as far as they knew. But anyway, so I did plays with them when I was young. We also got together with my cousins and ran our own little company for our parents and that stuff like that. And then finally I went to the University of Toronto because we didn't have any acting schools in Canada at the time. But we all went to U of T because we had there an extracurricular program with a professional director who happened to be the same director who directed my cousin's plays. And that's where I got to know Donald Sutherland and various other Canadian actors who've become quite famous. But it was when I was there that I was doing some acting, but someone came along and said they wanted help directing a play. So I said, okay, sure, why don't I do that? And then he lost interest and I ended up directing it myself. And it was a big success, and then people wanted me to direct, and I started directing more and more and more. And so even when I went to England to study as an actor, I really went with my head as a director because I wanted to know more about what does an actor do to make me a better director. So it was about 20 years where I was directing in rep in England. I was teaching acting in Canada and Britain. And it was kind of almost accidental that I drifted back to acting. I started doing some classes, again, with the idea of learning more about what the actor does, and I started. So then it seemed like, well, I have some skills at acting. I've learned something over the years. So I got an agent and decided to just flesh out my income, and then one thing led to another, led to another, led to another, and then I became an actor when I was in my 50s.
But I feel like it's one of those things when you have the performing bug, whether it is acting, radio, or hosting, sometimes it's that desire of like sharing something. For me, I was 2.5 years old, and in my home country, it's like forget about it to make a living, unless you're from a certain class or your family is, it's like you can't really have this dream, like at least in my time. So it was crazy for me to believe that, I can come to Canada, and I accidentally started doing this. Let's talk a bit about your book, because I'm sure a lot of local actors can learn from you. You've had, obviously not just this one iconic character, but you have like close to 140 plus, like that we see on IMDb, roles. But of course the radio stuff, the directing, you have this decades-long experience. In this book, you talk about your philosophy on acting. How would you say has your approach to acting evolved over the years? And I'm also curious about someone watching out there. How do they contact you as well if they want to work with you?
Okay, a few questions then.
Yeah.
So the book, I'm really, I guess, focusing on the second book now. It's on acting. And like the first one is more of a personal memoir. This is 2 parts. I actually copied Stephen King's format, and the first half is really a professional biography of how I came to learn about acting, how I got exposed to it, and the second section is really what I think I know about acting. People who've read it really, I really recommend it. Brian Cox recommended it, my favorite acting teachers have recommended it. David Duchovny recommended, and people find it really gives them a lift in terms of a way of working as an actor that makes sense. That is logical. It's something you can do. It's not boogie woogie. It's practical, and yet it gets you there.
And the fact that this is written by an actor who's had a career instead of, it's great to hear, like I've read books, I'm not going to say any names, by coaches, but it's very different when you hear from someone who's had a career. I personally enjoy reading books like autobiography, it's like where I can be like where I can hear, okay, so this is what you were going through, this was your process, because I'm so, obviously we have so many things to talk about. I'm so fascinated by, because I remember, I think I was like 12 or 13 when I watched X-Files in Pakistan. I remember how it left an imprint on me and my brother. English was our second language. And we're just, of course we love David and Jillian, and everyone else, Mitch. But there was something about your character, and you're like, man, this guy. And either that could have been, this character could have been a hit or not. A hit or, you know what I mean? And the way the space around you, there was a poise, there was a slow, and there was a command. And that's what I found so intriguing. And I think that's what actors can learn. So let's talk a bit about, for example, if I say, hey, William, I want to come to class. I seem to be auditioning a lot, not doing much booking. My passion for acting is fading, literally. So how does one come to study with William B. Davis?
That's a good question, because
interview him.
I'm not actually offering classes to the general public or working in that way. I mean, the group that we're working with now started off being all graduates of the Van Arts acting program, where I sometimes teach. So that's a start. You could, if the Van Arts program survives, and a lot of the schools are dying because of new federal regulations about foreign students, so they may not survive. But if they do, studying at Van Arts would be a good start. They have a one-year program, and I teach there, but I'm only one of several, that teaches there. This program that we're doing here took some of those graduates, and we've added to it with some other people and some professionals that I've worked with over the years. But I don't have a shingle up as an acting coach at the present time. I don't know if I will, but you can certainly keep in touch with what I'm doing through my website, which is williambdavis.com. So.
And I also see all these videos that are uploaded on YouTube.
Yeah.
So lots of great content, and I feel like a place to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's great to see you coaching and talking to folks. And
yeah.
I was like, wow, look at William in action, And I feel like actors make the best directors. They make the best coaches, because for me, I want to learn from someone who's done it, instead of nothing wrong with someone who just, but I want to learn from the folks who've been there.
Yeah.
They've made the mistakes, they've had the successes, and they know, and they're talking from experience. You've trained and mentored many actors. What's one lesson you always emphasize to your students?
Off the top of my head, I would say don't memorize your lines. Because you want, actually you can use the word inhabit if you like. Well, here's I don't know if this really answers your question, but it's a way to explain what I do as a teacher. When we were kids, teenagers, roughly, and we were at the summer cottage in the summer, my mother would give us one day where we could do anything we liked. Didn't have any rules. We could do whatever, as long as it was safe, we could do anything we liked. So we looked forward to that day all summer. It's a day we could do whatever we liked. And on that day, we had a great day. And we did almost exactly the same things we did every other day. But the point was, we did what we wanted to do, not what someone told us to do. And that's what you want to feel when you go into a scene, when you go into an act, that you're doing exactly what you want to do. You want to say these lines, not because they're the ones that were written, but because you want to. And you want to say them the way you want to say them. Not because the director told you, say it louder or say it this way, but just because it's what you want to do. And so the work, and it's a lot of it is your homework, is coming to the point where that is what you want to do. Memorizing your lines, I mean, sometimes you can do it, I mean, people do it, but then you have to overcome the fact that you did it, because you don't want to be saying your lines because you memorized them.
And they sound so bland.
Yes, exactly, right.
And I can see that even when I'm putting pins on tape, and it's just like you're reaching for the, what was the word again?
Oh,
especially when it's the scientific and technical mumbo jumbo, like, you know,
exactly.
when it's the, when you have to, for the doctor shows, and like in Vancouver, or like the really long, I honestly have so much respect for folks who work on the ER type shows and all the diseases and the words and the names, and it's wow.
You don't have to know what they really mean. You just have to know what you think they mean. So that makes it a little simpler. But I played a physicist, a theoretical physicist. I played Niels Bohr in a play once. So I mean, I had to learn about atomic theory. I mean, it was part of the fun. But yeah, you have to understand what you're talking about.
That's amazing. Have you ever had a day on set, William, whether you worked with someone or the work you did, that you're like, aha, like everything makes sense, like all the, you know, I'm sure with your career you've had many moments that are like pinch me, like everything is perfect, like, you know, the feeling of like rainbows, then the birds are singing, and it's the perfect blue sky, like from the AD, the way they welcome you, to the catering, to the camera crew or director, like everything is gelling, and you're like, this is my life, like, wow, if I can bottle this up right now and drink this every day. Like, have you had moments like this, and that are like a few days that stand out for you when you look back at your career?
Funnily, I think I'd be more inclined to find days like that in the theater than in film and television. There's so much in film and television that is part of the structure of making it. I sometimes say that the difference between acting for film and acting for the theater is in acting for theater you're performing, acting for film you're manufacturing. You know, you're making bits of film that they'll put together into a whole. But when you're in the theater, you're creating the whole thing. So, I mean, I couldn't point to a particular instance of what you say, but certainly there have been times that, you know, you just feel everything's falling into place as you want it to. Yeah.
Any plays that you've done that you're like, okay, that really was like a highlight, and I've only done, I wouldn't say like a full play, when they, what do you call it, when they're hashing out the script, but you still do the performance, you rehearse and all of that. Anyways, I did that for a play like last year, and oh my goodness, of course the script was like close to 100 pages, and like making sure you have everything down in a week, the rehearsal, all the things. But the high that I felt afterwards, you know, like the second night of like in front of an audience, and they were, I was like, man, that is a different feeling.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah,
that was just like, I just felt like I came home, I didn't want to sleep, because I'm like, touch the wall, like it's like, this is, you know. And then I've had a few days like that of performing or interviewing folks on set, where I'm like, wow, all the struggles are worth it. All the no's, all the times that I was crying over something are worth it. Any projects, like plays, like any days like that, you know, that you're like, that episode or that something that just like stands out for you?
There's been a lot of moments.
Yeah.
More as a director in some ways. There was a production I did in Chesterfield in England of a play called Two for the Seesaw, with a Canadian actress, Jackie Burrows, a very good actress, and Donald Sutherland. It's just a two-character play. And we rehearsed it in a somewhat different way. And the first, not the first, but about the third performance, it suddenly clicked. Just everything was kind of automatic. And it was like something had happened. Like, and I know that there was the director of the Sheffield Playhouse was there that night, and he said it was the best night he'd ever had. The theater, you know, it was just, didn't last, but me as an actor, I don't know because I'm too inside it. I mean, I know what I'm feeling, I guess, but I don't. I'm not judging it. So, but what you're asking, I guess, is how did it feel? Did I feel elated by it?
Yeah.
And, maybe not fully, maybe never fully. But,
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. What was it like working with Donald Sutherland?
It was very interesting because when we worked together at the University of Toronto, he was really a beginner, and I'd had quite a bit of experience with my cousin's theatre company and working on radio. And we thought he was really bad. We thought, if there's one actor among us, among our group of undergraduates, that's not going to succeed, it'll be Sutherland. Now he tweaked it once. We did a production of Tempest, and he played Stefano. He was very good in that, I have to admit. But still, one was skeptical. Then he went to drama school in England, which he hated and complained about. But when I worked with him after that, he was fantastic. I mean, it's like all this raw stuff had found shape, and then he was able to focus it and use it, and then all this underlying stuff began to come out. So that when I did that one play with him after was a highlight, I think, for both of us.
That's so lovely. I would love to hear, I've seen you talk about on different interview shows, how you've had folks like standing next to you and they'll be like shaking and they're like, oh my God, like I am next to a star. What is it like for you when you run into fans and, you know, someone will not even maybe say your name, they're like Smoking Man or X-Files. What is that feeling like for you?
Well, of course, I used to have a lot of that. It's pretty much gone now, but when the show was in its peak, it was remarkable. I mean, I could be sitting in a gondola to ski on a big skier, and I had my helmet on, my goggles on, blah, 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 blah. Somebody, oh, you're from X-Files. You know, I think, how do you know? And then there was all the people who would get it wrong. I remember walking through the village in Whistler, and somebody saying, "Oh, I know you. You're from Kitchener-Waterloo." No, I'm not from Kitchener-Waterloo. That's not how you know me. But you know, I remember one time. This is the one you may have seen, that I got on an elevator, and you know what you do in an elevator? You stand, you face the front, you don't look at anybody.
Yeah.
And there's a woman standing beside me, and you can see she's going. And then she said, "You look like that man from the X-Files." And I said, "I am that man from the X-Files." Oh my God!
Was the elevator full or was it just you two?
There were a couple of other people.
Yeah.
But when it came to a stop, she'd settled down and she rushed and got all her friends to come and get autographs. But her first reaction was fear, but then I was excited.
Because I think so many people believe you are that character.
Yeah, exactly.
You are the cancer man, the smoking man, and it's interesting because you actually quit smoking.
Oh yes.
You used to smoke.
Yeah, but I quit long before I did the show. Yeah.
So what was it like? Were you guys using herbal cigarettes? Like what was happening?
Well, when the first, because I didn't know the show was
Yeah.
going anywhere particularly, and I thought
They're like this alien abduction show. What is this?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't put any money in that. And so it was 13 years or 17 years since I quit. So they said, "Do you want these herbal cigarettes? Or do you want to smoke a real cigarette?" No. I said, "I'm an actor. Give me the real cigarette. That's fine." So I smoked a real cigarette, real plural cigarettes in that pilot episode. And then I did a second episode, and I used real cigarettes. And then I found myself sitting at home and wishing they'd call me for that X-Files show. And at that point, I knew I had to switch. So
Yeah.
we switched to these herbal cigarettes,
Which is not quite the thing, but you know, I totally get it. So X-Files still remains a cultural phenomenon. What is it like being part of something that's captivated audiences decades later? You know, I know you have this big body of work, you know, from acting, directing, teaching, writing, but of course everyone like around the world, like I could call up my cousin in like Karachi, I could talk to someone in Paris, and I would be like, I'm sitting down with the smoking man, with William B. Davis, even in my building. Everyone was like, oh my God, can I take a picture? I was like, sorry, no. What is that like for you?
It's funny because I don't think about it much anymore. And in some ways it always surprises me that you say that, because it seems to have paled, it seems to have kind of faded, and now I'm obviously more focused on the present state of my career and whatever my reputation is in Vancouver as opposed to Karachi.
But you have this, like, you know, you're part of this iconic show with this iconic character that was a big part of this show, you know, and your character, like, I was always like, okay, is the guy gonna come on? And then we would discuss, like, he came in, what is he gonna do next? And he's going to ruin everything. He's working with the aliens.
Oh, there was all of that, and I had to watch most of the episodes that I wasn't in, because I might have done something in the episode even though I wasn't in the episode.
Yeah.
You know, something burns down. I bet I did that.
Yeah.
So that was all important, but maybe we take a somewhat different look at it, being a working actor in a working situation, and we appreciate the work, and we appreciate the opportunity, and we appreciate the attention, but we're not fan-struck, as it were. We're not starstruck by it, because it's the work that we do. You know, people sometimes say, you know, well, what was it like working on the set of The X-Files? Well, it wasn't very different from working on any other set. We're just working on a set. We don't know while we're working that your friends in Pakistan want to watch this. We're just doing the work. So I think we somehow have a more limited sense of it, or a more...
Of the impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating. It's the storytelling, right? Like, I learned English by watching movies and listening to music, and how, you know, just through seeing like characters like yours on the screen, being glued to television, like we would not leave. Like for me, the theme song to X-Files, like it's
Yeah.
first when this interview was confirmed, the first thing I did was message my brothers, because I know that is such a big part of our childhood.
Right.
Like, you know, this was the thing, we would be glued. Like, there is no way you could move us when the new episode was coming out. I think it used to be Wednesday or Thursday in Pakistan. And we were just, so I personally think, even though, yes, it's years later, that as an outsider looking in, that, wow, how phenomenal to be part of something. So I will give you props for that. I'm impressed. Did you ever expect the character to become what it did?
Oh, no. No. As you know, I didn't expect it even to continue. It wasn't even a recurring role when I first did it. But that it became so, so iconic, as you put it. No, I never expected that.
And did people ever confuse you, like William B. Davis and then this character, and getting upset at you, whether at an airport or somewhere? You did that. You did this to Mulder. You did this to Scully. Because I know some fans, they believe that that's the reality. Did that ever happen?
No. No. You could see people wary of me because they thought there was a connection, but no, I didn't get that kind of thing they do with soap operas sometimes. It's really, really attacking you for something the character did.
Okay. Now let's talk a bit about the masterclass, which we did talk about in the YouTube videos. How often can we expect to see these videos?
We're putting out 2 videos a week,
Mm-hmm.
usually on Wednesday and Friday.
Okay.
And we'll be doing that for quite a while because we've got quite an inventory backed up of things we're putting together. So.
And that is just on YouTube or on the website as well, or both?
No, that's on YouTube only.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can get the link off the website.
Yeah.
To take you to it.
Great, and we'll share that. What inspired you to create this master class?
Well, it's interesting. It was kind of my wife pushed it because my wife is a boxer.
Mm.
And she has been so influenced by this boxing coach in Russia called Frolov, and she's watched hundreds of videos and whatever, and she's found it a great way to learn. So she knows that I have lots of stuff to offer, and so she thought, let's see what happens if we offer them in this way.
Mm.
And it blended with what I was doing because I was teaching at Van Arts, and really, really getting excited about getting back to teaching, and then finding that my methodology had matured quite significantly, and my ability to communicate had matured, and so we were getting results and able to do things that maybe I didn't do as a teacher, 20 years ago. So putting those 2 things together has been exciting to do. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're going to be linking this up so people can find that. Other than YouTube and your website, I found you on Instagram as well. We can see some stuff connected through your Instagram and see what's coming up. If there's one piece of advice that you could give to a performer, whether an actor or like even a director, what would you say?
Get training.
Mm.
Learn how to do it. There are things that you can call talent. And there's certainly people who have an instinct for it more than other people. But there is stuff to learn.
Mm.
There is people sometimes think because it looks natural when you see it on a great film. You see a film actor looking perfectly normal, just talking normally, it's just like a normal person.
Mm.
Well, why can't I do that? I'm a normal person, so why don't I do that?
Mm.
Well, it's not that easy. Somehow you have to get so that you want to say, as I say, to say exactly those things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So get training.
Yeah.
Find out what it's about.
Mm. Are you working primarily on the script? Do you do like movement stuff?
We don't in this workshop. No, we're not doing voice and movement training.
Yeah.
Though it's good to do those things, but we don't do it.
And for anyone who's watching at home, if they want to get in touch with you for something or send you fan mail or anything, how can
there's
through your
a
website?
Yeah, there's a contact address on the website. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that we haven't covered today, William, that you'd like to share with us before I let you go? I know your time is precious, so I want to be mindful of that.
No, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been truly amazing for me, and I'm just getting flashbacks of, being a teenager in Pakistan, and what an honor sitting down with you. As I mentioned earlier, I'd seen you around downtown a couple of times, and part of me, I wanted to be like, but I'm also, respectful of people, and especially I think in Canada, in Vancouver, where I feel like a lot of actors, a lot of celebrities, they say that they find people just let you be, no, it's not like LA, it's not like the US where, people are going to hound you for like, hey, give me that photo, I need to take that photo with you right now to send it to my mom back home.
Yeah, and it's even better in London, I understand. I don't know about recently, but I know, Laurence Olivier used to take the subway to work.
Yeah.
And he wasn't hounded.
Mm.
Most famous actor in the country. Yeah.
If you could share with our audience before I let you go, you've had decades-long experience in the industry, not just as a performer, but as a director, and of course now teacher, coach, and you've written these books. What do you hope your legacy will be? It's an interesting question.
Yes, yes. I mean, I think I've found a way of working as an actor that is in significant ways different from most of the acting coaches that I've dealt with or read about or whatever. So I think that's a useful technique. And I'd be happy to see that more, see that expanded. But yeah, it's I don't know what legacy. It's always, it's kind of worrying that when people die, they literally disappear. I mean, and there's like whole worlds that I know, especially in Canada and especially in the theater, that not too many people know. United Players recently did a version of It's a Wonderful Life set in a radio studio, in a live radio studio. And we never did really follow up on this, but I wrote to them and I said, because I don't know, you know, I might be the only person alive in Vancouver who's actually done that, who's actually done live radio drama the way it was done when it was live to air. When if you made a mistake, it was everybody heard it. When the orchestra was in the studio, you didn't mix it all together afterwards. You mixed it right there as you did it. And not that that's that important. It's just a whole historical stretch, if you like.
A different level of performing.
Yeah.
And you know, I think even when I hear your voice, to be honest, like, and I was listening to it even in your interviews, it's got a bit of a tone, you know, and I can hear that, like, I can see, like, you know, that you come from that theater background.
Yeah.
For me, for someone like me, I feel the voice part when it comes to performing, because there's something when I become a character, somehow my voice gets really high, and I have to work really hard on, like, you know, just like grounding myself. So I'm always like listening to people's voice, and I feel like one of the notes I always get is, you know, to like being in the body instead of just like from up here.
Yeah, there's some very good voice teachers in Vancouver, so you could look for some voice training.
Yeah. Well, it's what an honor having you here, William.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. And, you know, as my little Loki lies down here and Lily in the other room meowing a few times, hope you guys didn't hear that too much. On this beautiful day in Vancouver, we're so honored to have the legendary William B. Davis join us today. And make sure to grab copies of his book. We'll be sharing a link to his website so you can grab them. You can get in touch with him if you like, and also check out his YouTube with all the masterclass. We'll be sharing all that information. William, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, Zara Durrani, and you're watching On Location Vancouver. Coupe! Okay, Mommy gonna cancel the little thing, and we'll do a little few stills here. S'il te plaît. Sit down. Oh, wow, that was an hour long.
Quite uncomfortable, I have to tell you.
Oh, so
Really